Everyone for joining us today. I'm Jeff Henwood. I'm the Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy with Alberta Municipalities. And again, I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, Grants in Your Municipalities, Meeting Grant Agencies. This is kind of your opportunity to learn best practices from professional grant writer David Kincaid and Alberta Municipal Affairs Acting Director for Operating Programs and Strategic Initiatives, Ryan Barber. Before we begin, I'd like to highlight that in addition to webinars, we have teamed up with Alberta Business Grants to bring you the latest information on available grants via a weekly newsletter. You can sign up for the Grant Gazette by visiting abmunis.ca, clicking on Joint Programs, and then Municipal and Not-for-Profit Grants. So we'll get ready to turn the floor over to David Kincaid, who's the founder of Alberta Business Grants. David's background includes 13 years now as a successful grant writer with significant wins. He's the lead instructor for Advanced Grant Writing course and the author of Golden Grant Rules, the ultimate guide for winning government grants. So with that, David, over to you.
Yeah, you can also add to my biography the guy who cannot get the share sound working on a webinar. If you have any experience on this, Jeff, maybe while I'm just getting started, the feature for sharing sound on videos when you share a screen is different, and it used to be advanced, and they've made this update again. So we'll try it when I get there. But if you can figure out while I'm going through this intro how to share sound when I share my screen on a Zoom, you will be a grant genius. Okay,
I'll do what I can, but I will say, Marlene, yes, there will be a recording this available on our website afterwards. So you can find that on abmunis.ca.
correct. Let's get started, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm going to share my screen here. Stand by. Just bear with me. I was trying to get this sound going. We've got a special session for you today. We are talking about grants in your municipality, meeting grant agencies. You know, when we talk about grants, we talk about finding money, and then you come up with a project. And ideally, if you get a situation where you can meet the grant agency to answer any questions or get to understand their needs, that's ideal. Meeting a grant agency can take many forms, such as attending events like this and getting to know what their needs are and what they're looking for. So congratulations on coming here. This is part of a series that we've been doing now for several years. This is the third year of it, where we're trying to increase, your grant writing knowledge and get general advice on grant writing. This is going to be the flow today. So Jeff just gave us some introductions, and the next will be, I have some announcements and just some housekeeping that I need to do before we turn this over to Mr. Barber joining us from the government. So stand by for that. And then I'm going to say just a few things that I've learned, sort of set the stage before he comes on, and then we'll turn the floor over to him. And I always say, as I just mentioned, we're here to get that knowledge, but the main thing is really around building trust among government, business, and communities. Now, Jeff is going to put this in to the chat if he hasn't already, but this is the 11th video, and those videos are available all on my YouTube channel. So you'll see those coming through shortly. Let me just show you what this looks like right now. It'll look like, actually, just hang on. I'll take you for a ride here. Go over here. So it's on this channel right here, all of the past videos, so you can see them there. The next thing I wanted to show you is the grant calendar. A reminder, in December, we built a grant calendar. That was a list of grants, so you would find the grants and you would meet grant agencies. If you found that, great. If you're new and you don't know where that is, you don't know where you put it, if you go here to this page, if you go grant events, I'll just put in the link for you. You go back to December 12th. Again, Jeff will have the link for you, but you click there. There's where you can download that entire list of grants that are available for you. Right there. So I'll let Jeff put that in the chat for you. Come back here for a moment. Stay with me for a sec here. The next thing I want to, show you is a reminder that you have complimentary access, ABmunis, to the Grant Gazette. And some of you are not sure what that is. So just really quickly, you will go here. And if you put in that coupon right there, it'll take it. I'll show you. It goes to 0. You just put the coupon there on that page. Jeff can throw that in there for you. But I just wanted you to see what this looks like because some of you, I don't think, are using it. This is the Grant Gazette. And then you can go to Municipal Affairs right here. It'll take you down. And these are all the upcoming grant deadlines. Just by show of chat, is anybody getting this newsletter right now, by the way? Just looking at the chat. Where are you, chat? Okay, perfect. Yep. Great, you're getting it. But yeah, you can see it's just wild, right? And the other thing I wanted to show you, and it's all part of this program that you're on, is over here, there's an open database for you. So you can go municipalities, you can go Alberta, you can go search, and look, there's 303 grants there for you that you're eligible for. And you can open this up, and it's a grant on a page, so you can look quickly. So those are just resources, part of this program that you can take advantage of. And if you're having any problems at all, please email me. Jeff could put, if you don't mind, just throwing my email in the chat. That would be fantastic. Also, just a couple reminders. You might remember about an AI webinar we talked about, Leroy. We've got a free webinar coming up if you're interested in this. It's just around how to handle AI, how to use it, build workflows, and that type of thing. So that is a free webinar, which you'll see. Jeff will have that in the chat. If you are interested in more than that, just an FY, there will be a small course, like 3 sessions, and AB members get $200 off the pilot. So it's like regular 500, but you get it for 300. But I would start with the free webinar and just see if that adds value to your life. And the final thing I want to mention is if you're interested, some of you have taken the advanced grant writing course. The next one is in April. Today, we're really around winning grant agency meetings. I've got to watch my time because I want to turn this over. Jeff, any luck? Probably not. I've had you really busy finding out the share volume. I cannot believe that they have changed it or something. It happens, but I don't think it's going to work. But hey, Jeff,
I don't see it. Maybe we can crowdsource this, David, and say if anyone knows any
yeah,
tricks with Zoom, throw it in the chat. But
yeah. What I'm going to get you to do, folks, it's only 2 minutes. And I think I think maybe we'll do it after. But what I wanted to show you is we had, it's a really compelling reason for, I'll try to share this. You're not going to be able to see, but just stand by. Here it comes. I'll just try for a second. Hold on. I'm going to share this. Jeff, just let me know. I don't think you're going to be able to hear it, but just let me know. Can you hear this? Can you hear the music?
no.
Ah, you have no idea what that does to me. That's Zoom. I'm going to shoot you for doing this. This is crazy. Um, Take yourself a moment right now. We had an Alberta company organization win this grant. Actually, I'm just going to save time. We'll come back to it. I'll try to get it going while Mr. Barber's talking. But it's an amazing grant where they do an amazing job articulating this grant project, and it drives me crazy that I can't get it going. But bear with me. I'll see if I can do that after this. But they won in a farm, a container farm. It was an international competition called the Zayed Prize out of the Middle East. And it was just an incredible project. That video, which I strongly recommend you watch, is in in the chat that Jeff is going to provide right now. So I would encourage you to watch that. It's extremely helpful. The basis of everything that we do here is you're really trying to build trust between business and government. I'm going to sort of set the stage, give you a couple best practices from my experience, but I always say, always think for yourself, okay? Always, you're going to hear tips and tricks from people like me, but please always think for yourself. But what we're going to do first is we're going to launch this poll just to let Mr. Barber know who is here. This helps us Here it comes. I'm launching. You'll see it right now. I'll share the results with you. It just lets you know where the municipality is from and how much grant experience you have. That would be great and helps us with our tracking as well. Wow. Thank you so much for, there's a lot of you that have quite a bit of experience, like a third of you less than a year, and a third of you are, are over that. Here we go. Let's just leave it up for another 5 seconds. And here we go. There you go. You can see who's here. Thank you for doing that. That's really great. And then I'm just going to give you a couple tips and then we'll hand it over to the star of the show. A couple thoughts that I had. So one is for you, especially for you new people, some of the veterans on here will know this, but I strongly encourage you, make sure you ground yourself in the basics. I mean, this is a government audience, but even if this is new into your career, just get the understanding of elected officials, obviously the pros, just bear with me for a minute. And then you've got, either bureaucrats, like we're going to talk to today, people that work at a department, or at a delivery agent. There's a lot of different delivery agents who are going to give out these relationships. So I strongly encourage you, if you don't have that, most of you will, but make sure you have a really strong understanding of government, how it works. Grants get elected, they have a mandate. They're trying to achieve that mandate. They have all these type of things, right? Mandate letter, business plans. So you're just understanding where grants come from and how they work, which leads to my second point. Always, as you approach the meeting grantee agents, remember, they won. They've got the mandate, i.e. the government, and they're choosing the direction. And it's up to us to make sure that we're understanding their direction, we have our projects, and that we're bringing in alignment. And some of the things you may want to do is look at what they're counting, that type of thing, right? You can look at their business plans. They'll even reveal, what they're doing. And it just leads to one of my favorite quotes, which is, you can have everything in life you want if you just help other people get what they want, with Zig Ziglar. Oftentimes when I meet people in grants, they're often saying like, hey, I want a grant, but just get into the mindset of, okay, what problem are you solving for the government? It can really help you. Unfortunately, this video is not going to work, but it's a great video from Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's investment partner. He's a really good guy. And he talked about deserving to win. And this idea of make sure you do the basics, right? You're reading the guidelines. Your team's expectations are aligned. Your project scope is easy to communicate. And this sounds simple, but ask the 1/3 of people who've got over 6 years experience here, getting your project, your team aligned, and getting it easy to communicate. It's not easy stuff. So make sure you're doing that hard work before your application gets to Mr. Barber here. And you're going to have a lot more success. I just wanted to talk about sort of gaining more skills. And that is, I specifically wanted to talk about project management. I was just playing around. I don't know what these numbers are. I made these up, okay? But this idea of once you get into projects, what is your scope? What is your schedule? What is your budget? What is a work breakdown structure? I just strongly encourage you to keep adding on skills to become great at grants. And it may mean watching YouTube videos or taking other courses, but just this idea of building really clear, strong projects is really, really, really a skill that you can't get by without going into a grant agency and knowing your numbers and all that stuff. And the last point I just wanted to make is about just around character. And one of my favorite quotes is, you can be very good. Outstanding long-term results are produced primarily by avoiding dumb decisions rather than making brilliant ones. You don't have to be a genius here. And when I talk about character, I mean, it's kind of a strange word, but you're just being authentic. Mr. Barber talked about something last time, which I thought was very good around communicating in the budget box that things that are going on, like we don't have that other quote yet, or we submitted a grant, we haven't heard back yet. Being authentic, being respectful if you lose, adding value to these people, whether it's, inviting them when they're in town or at your events, you really want to become an expert, almost an advisor to them. And then what we want to talk about today is using AI well. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to set the stage with, and I will, with that, I apologize for not having the audio. I can't believe it. It was the second one. I still thought it was working, but I'll see if I can get it fixed for you for question period. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Barber.
Thanks, Mr. Kincaid. Hi, all. Thanks for having me here today. I am coming out of one of those Alberta viruses, so this is my second day of recovery. So if I need to take a drink of water here at some point, just to make sure that I can continue with my voice, that's what I'll do. So thanks so much for the introduction, and really happy to be here. I think it's been about 2 years since I did this. Some of you may have been on the last presentation that I gave here. But yeah, today I'm going to be just giving some best practices around the competitive grant programs piece. There's a couple new items that I've added. One is resources, and the other is I'll talk a little bit about the AI piece. Mr. Kincaid and I talked offline just yesterday about some of the tools that we think might be advantageous for you to use as you work through that whole grant administration piece. Okay, so let me just make sure. Okay, perfect. So first off, I'll just start off with a little bit of an overview of the presentation today, but also an overview of our branch. So while I'll be talking about the competitive grant programs, we do offer other allocation-based grant programs within our branch. Our branch's grants and education property tax, short form GEPT is what I'll refer to it after this. But our allocation grant programs, likely heard of those, of course, is the local government fiscal framework. Now there's both capital and operating allocations for that. And then we administer the federal Canada Community Building Fund as well. My area as manager that I oversee is the Alberta Community Partnership Program. And that's where two of our competitive-based grant programs are located. As I shared just a little bit earlier, we'll talk about leveraging some of the AI tools. And this is very fluid right now. This area is sort of developing, as you can probably understand. And this is from my perspective of what I'm seeing. And then I'll share some grant program resources as well. First off, as I shared in the previous slide, we are responsible for delivering a few different grant programs, but these are the only competitive grant programs that we have here. So my presentation today, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to use some of these best practices and some of the other competitive grant programs that you may have access out there. So first off, the Alberta Community Partnership, the purpose behind it is to help improve municipal viability and long-term sustainability through support for regional collaboration and capacity building initiatives. And that's what we've got here. The intermunicipal collaboration component,
Sorry, Ryan. I don't. Are you sharing your screen right now?
I am, yes.
Jeff, are you seeing it?
I am.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the intermunicipal collaboration, it describes exactly what that component's all about. It's about supporting regional collaboration, and the types of projects in there are service delivery plans, frameworks, and studies. The municipal internship component, it builds capacity for Alberta municipalities. It gives post-secondary graduates the opportunity to develop some of their knowledge and their skills in municipalities. And really kickstart their career in municipal administration or finance or land use planning, and really helps build the capacity of that municipal sector. And this program has been ongoing for a number of years now. All right, so next up I'll talk about some of the best practices when applying to competitive grant programs. And again, this is ACP, but I'm hopeful some of this may be applicable to other grants that you have access to out there. So one of the things that you really want to do is clearly state the priority problem with all grant programs. So before any planning or chat with the funder, you should ensure that the project that you have, that you plan to apply for, is a priority with the funder. Now you heard Mr. Kincaid talk earlier that you can do a little bit of research on this to find out what is that priority. In our guidelines, we state it, but it's also in Municipal Affairs business plan. Similarly, that may be true for other external funders. So remember, you're asking the funder for money. It's the funder that wants to direct money towards projects that they believe are the most important. So make sure that the text of your application is written so that the reviewers can easily see how your project addresses those priorities. It should really be front and center. Identify the partnerships. So for us, for our program, the intermunicipal collaboration, we want to know who the partners are. So identify the weaknesses in the project and see how your partners can help address these areas. That may be something you want to look at. These weaknesses may be capacity issues, project scale considerations, or technical expertise. Again, Mr. Kincaid talked about authenticity, and I echo that as well. And showcase your winning team. Make it clear in your application that you've got that winning team, that you can see this project through to fruition. Make sure to clearly identify how your partners will assist your project in the application. That's the best thing. Now, draft, review, edit, and repeat, as it shows right in the slide. This is very important. So your first draft, it won't be the easiest to read, but you may need to plan on writing and rewriting your application at least a couple times. And please do save it. A lot of applications now, folks are applying online. I would like to say you should trust those online systems, but I still feel like you should keep a copy offline of your input, just to make sure that if anything happens, you lose work that's in that online submission, that you still have that hard copy of your application. But yes, each round of editing that you do is going to move the application one step closer to one that is easy to read. Use the network that you had. This is great that you've got this forum here and you've got so many great colleagues. Choose somebody who will be candid with you with your application. So it's best to get the hard feedback out of the way before you hit the send button on your application. Developing your budget. The budget, it's a critical piece of any grant application, so take care just to make sure that you satisfy the criteria laid out in the guidelines. Some items might not be allowable expenses, so you want to make sure that you don't exceed the maximum budget values. You could have the best application in the world, and then when it comes to the budget, they just can't figure out how it fits within the grant program because you've missed something in that area. Make sure that your budget requests are reasonable and calculated, estimated, as opposed to guessed. So try to bring some quantitative analysis to your budget. So keep in mind that the reviewers of your application understand that it costs money to make things happen. So you don't need to apologize when you include costs that are fair and, if possible, explained in the narrative. So meet the deadline. The deadline is almost always listed in a clear place when it's on a website. Nowadays, you can't really miss it. The responsibility of meeting that final deadline is entirely yours. So just be aware that funders have to maintain that fairness and transparency. So exceptions around deadlines are rarely approved in our experience. If your application is late, it will be eliminated, really, no matter how good it is. So good planning is key to really getting your application in on time. Just tempering your expectations. So keep in mind that the nature of the competitive program means that information a grant advisor can discuss is sometimes limited. They can't review your application ahead of time in most cases. If they do, then you should do that. But in most cases, they cannot. Program guidelines usually specify some of the program details, some prerequisites and conditions. Like, for example, in our guidelines for the Alberta Community Partnership, we've got a scoring guide and examples that includes points to consider when answering your application questions. And I think a lot of other funders, grant funders, have that criteria available as well. Be aware that some competitive programs don't allow for attachments. If they don't specifically ask for endorsements, that's another thing that likely won't be considered are endorsements. So if it's not in that evaluation criteria and it's not requested as part of that application, then I would suggest that you don't provide that. Next up, I'll talk about some things to avoid. So these two are sort of some best practices. So lack of knowledge of the grant. So make sure you understand what the objectives of the funder and the program are. So you want to check those guidelines. We're going to be talking about use of AI in a little bit. AI can be a very helpful tool to review guidelines and give you summary information. It's not a replacement for looking at the guidelines entirely, but it can give you a nice little start. So lack of knowledge of the grant, you really need to have that understanding of the grant itself. Making unrealistic demands. So don't make unrealistic demands. Instead, approach applying the grant as a collaborative process. So do your homework, know the parameters of the project and the program that you're applying to. Be aware that sometimes third parties prepare duplicate applications for several municipalities within a single grant intake for competitive programs. We assemble a panel, and so we see that duplication. This can be problematic for your municipality, particularly where applications are ranked. You can understand how that puts a panel in a little bit of a bind. So duplicate information can appear across multiple municipalities and applications when the third party is providing that grant writing service. So it's your job to make sure that you tailor that application after you get it back from that third party. Making sure, checking that it is appropriate for your project, make sure that it's customized and relevant to the needs of your municipality. If you do that, you'll be in a good place. And last piece is follow up on any loose items. Keep your availability and communications open at a reasonable level. Sometimes a funder will call you for clarity around. It's sort of rare, but it can happen from time to time. So make sure that you do have some availability after the fact. Okay, one of the things not often talked about is the back end of a grant decision. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So there's typically two outcomes. One, let's start with the best one. So your grant is successful. So take a moment to celebrate. It's an awesome thing, and your planning and preparation paid off for sure. But next, you've got to immediately read and understand your grant agreement, because there's responsibilities in there. Pay attention to the reporting requirements, the special conditions, the approved budget items. Sometimes not all budget items are approved. These may differ from what you've originally submitted. So the agreement, not your application, the agreement is really your guiding document. So if your project runs into challenges or falls behind schedule, for us, we ask that you call a grant advisor. More time, if you do that within a short period of time, more time than we have, essentially, to address issues like delays, scope changes, or budget adjustments, the more we're able to assist in that way. If your grant is unsuccessful, we know that that can be disappointing, but there is some value in a no. So treat it as a learning step toward a stronger application next time. Reach out to the grant advisor to understand, or the funder, what could be improved in the future. So we might want to ask questions like, what didn't land in the application? Could the project be resubmitted in a future intake? Is there a better suited program elsewhere? Here you can lean on your network. Many colleagues have received the same news before. They can share some of those lessons learned with you, strategies and examples from their past. And remember, an unsuccessful outcome doesn't always reflect the quality of your application. And that's the hard truth sometimes. Sometimes funding within a grant program is simply limited. By calling a grant advisor of that funding area, you should get an indication of that. A lot of times there's high quality applications, and there's only so much funds available. So just be aware of that as well. Okay, next up, I'll talk a little bit about leveraging AI tools. And again, this is just from my own experience on my side. So we've talked a little bit about some best practices now. So I want to talk about how this can help you research structure and strengthen grant applications, in my opinion. Before I start, maybe a couple of words on the subject of AI. So maybe some of you on this call are similar. You heard similar things back in the day when you were in university or college around what are you going to do with your English degree or your social sciences or arts degree and that sort of thing. And I remember that question asked quite a bit. But I always felt very strongly that if I can communicate ideas clearly, if I can think critically, I can work well with others, I've got those soft skills, there's very little I can't do. And over the years, I've worked in retail, I've worked in oil and gas, I've worked in the cultural sector, I've worked in banking, I've worked with the Crown Corporation and here with the provincial government for a number of years. So that strong communication and some of those soft skills have really carried me through a lot of different fascinating and interesting careers. But lately that question is starting to rise again. It's with the rise of AI, it feels like anybody can suddenly write at the same level as I have, technically, at least produce something that looks polished on the surface. So that technical writing piece is starting to change a little bit. It's no longer viewed as sort of that unique skill. And for someone like me, that's something that I've used to my advantage significantly over the years. So my response to this, and I recognize this, is my value isn't just in writing well, it's ensuring my research is sound, my content is accurate, and that I'm using every tool available to reach thoughtful conclusions. And that's where my value is sort of changing a bit. So that's how I'd like to frame this next section and how you might think about using AI when supporting sort of your grant work. So just to set this up, you've heard this before, I'm sure, but think of AI as a tool, not a replacement for your expertise. It can't be. It'll be seen right through when a panel gets a hold of a grant application. And just another reminder that if you're not working in an enterprise AI environment, so if you're using a third-party AI tool, make sure you aren't sharing any private or confidential information and following the policies of your organization. But using it as a research tool, it's starting to get better in this area. So AI can help scan multiple sources quickly to identify grant opportunities that match your project. So when I'm doing actual research on other grant programs that might be out there, when I'm reviewing our own grant programs and that sort of thing, I'm actually using AI as a search tool for that. It's also very good, as I talked earlier, about pulling eligibility criteria out so you can confirm your fit early. So when you've developed your statement, your problem statement and that sort of thing that I talked about earlier, you can actually do some early work with AI as a tool to sort of identify fit. So structuring your application, AI can help create outlines, it can help you develop your problem statements that I talked about earlier, your objectives, your deliverables, and your timelines. So it's really useful for organizing ideas before you begin drafting. And you heard me earlier talking about the whole process for developing the drafting piece, the editing piece, how important that is. This is now a great tool to help you out with that piece. Improving the clarity and consistency. So the AI tool can tighten language and help maintain a consistent tone throughout your application. And that's something we see a lot of, is that sometimes that tone isn't maintained all the way through. We'll have a great opening statement, but then we don't see how that project is actually going to come to fruition. So yeah, I can help out in this way. You know, there is sometimes a lot of technical content. Depending on the funder, AI can help generate some plain language explanations that helps your application read a little bit better as well. If you're new to a grant stream or component, AI can generate sample sections to help you get sort of started. So these are starting points. and you can adjust them to your context that you need. So overall, I mean, this tool can help you work a little bit faster, stay organized, and potentially meet requirements more effectively. But again, it isn't a substitute for understanding the grant program itself. You still need to have that good understanding of what you're applying to. Next up, I'll talk about enhancing your application with AI. So again, it's great for tightening up your wording, making your application sound a bit more polished. Helps you eliminate repetition, ensures your tone stays consistent across different sections. It can suggest ways to strengthen problem statements and rationale. It's useful for brainstorming or refining your rationale, so it reads stronger, it's a bit more compelling. Again, I talked about it checking alignment with your objectives, your activities, and your budget, so it can flag when something doesn't line up. For example, if the activities don't support the stated objectives, or if the budget doesn't match the plan, it can help identify that. So it's really about catching some of those inconsistencies before submission. Assist with creating some timelines, some work plans, and evaluation frameworks. I can't tell you enough. When I'm doing agendas now or I'm planning out a project, this tool is so helpful, saves me so much time. And in a similar way, it can help with your grant applications too. Helps ensure responses meet word limits and formatting standards. So, you know, a lot of grant programs out there, you apply online, like we talked about earlier. If you develop things offline and then you finally get to applying online, you're like, oh, this is 1,000 words, and I'm sitting at 2,500. Now I have to distill this information down to 1,000 words. This is a perfect tool for doing that and helping out with that. So it can keep that formatting clean. It's especially useful for those programs with strict templates. You know, some of ours have word counts as well. So next up, AI best practices from a grant writing perspective. So use AI as a drafting tool. It's not a substitute for subject expertise. Can help you with the structure and wording, but it doesn't replace your knowledge of the project. You still bring the context, you bring the judgment, you bring the understanding of what the funder is looking for. It won't do that for you. AI can generate placeholders or estimates, but it won't always be accurate with the financial figures. I think you probably all know this, but you know, those numbers, those timelines, those technical components, really you've got to double and triple check those things if you're using this as a tool. Customizing language so it reflects your organization's context. So AR drafts are pretty generic. The language is pretty similar. So it's important that you need to adjust that tone depending on what the funder is looking for. Oftentimes you can mirror that tone based on the guidelines for whoever that funder is or the communications that they provide. Again, avoid disclosing sensitive or confidential information in the prompt, so refer back to your organization and your own policies around privacy and confidential information. There's many ways to use AI without using that confidential information, and you still benefit from its use. Combine AI with your review for accuracy and tone. So again, I talked about that a little bit earlier, but maybe it can help you develop that strong first draft. But that human review that you do, ensures really that accuracy and that alignment with the program requirements. So that combination is really what can produce a polished, funder-ready application. Mr. Kincaid and I were chatting about a few things yesterday just on the AI front when I mentioned I could add that to this presentation. And some of the questions that came up just in our discussion, I hope you don't mind, Mr. Kincaid, but I've sort of written them out here and thought they'd be a good example. So, do you have any policies in place? Does the government of Alberta have any policies in place regarding AI-assisted applications? At this time, we do not have a formal policy in place regarding the use of this. from my experience, our applications looking similar. I can say from time to time, we do see applications that look similar, but this is typically due to copy and paste practices or organizations sort of reusing past submissions, I think, rather than AI use, at least at this time. So I haven't seen a noticeable pattern of AI generated applications looking uniform, but I can share this. The application quality is increasing, and I kind of expect this to happen with increased use of some of these AI tools. So take that as it may be, that this seems to be upping the game a bit when it comes to the quality of applications. Third, our expectations changing at our end, at your end. Some applications may have clearly been written with AI. So our expectations remain the same. Really, at the end of the day, fundamentally, applications must answer the questions clearly and meet the criteria of the program. So whether an applicant uses AI or not isn't something we evaluate. The focus is really on clarity, completeness, and alignment with the program requirements. You do those things. I've essentially just given you an AI query right there to input. So that's the biggest thing. So it's the clarity, completeness, alignment with the program requirements. And that, at the end of the day, is what we're striving for. Yeah, so that's my early piece on some of the AI use and intersecting with grant administration and applications. So next, I'll just talk about some quick grant program resources and where to find us as I wrap up this presentation. All of our municipal grant funding reports are available online. This could be helpful if your municipality wants to get some great ideas for a future project. So please do take a look. Yeah, it can give you a kind of a good idea of the type of projects that are funded. But at the same time, like I said, new guidelines are released every year, business plans are released every year. For the focus of the government and the program in any given year, you want to check out those resources as well. So some of our online resources, all of our grants have web pages that you can find. We have a municipal grants portal. There's lots of resources through rural municipalities of Alberta, Alberta municipalities, Federation of Canadian municipalities, lots of grants, Infrastructure Canada. And then, of course, I've always shared, our guidelines share contact information for our grant advisors. They're always available to answer any questions you might have. That's true for all the different programs, not just mine. And yeah, your human resources, like I talked about earlier, you've got your grant networks, you've got your colleagues that you can rely on and chat with, and other stakeholders you have. And just to share on our website, yeah, what it typically contains is what's new, program descriptions, guidelines, eligibility, project components, application reporting deadlines, how to apply, contact information, you name it. It's all there online. We try to make sure that it's not too busy on our webpage so that you can quickly digest that information on the website. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. I hope that I provided some value today. And again, thank you so much to Mr. Henwood and Mr. Kincaid for inviting me here today to share some of this experience in this area.
Thank you very much. That was really helpful, and thank you for adding all that stuff about AI. Quick question on it. You said something that was very interesting around emotions. In my class, it was very interesting. We had this project description contest or exercise rather. And one project description was like perfect. It was like unbelievably perfect. Like you read it and you're like, there's like nothing wrong with it. And then we had Ellen, this other lady in the class, write one that it had more emotion in it. Like it felt like a human being. I mean, you know what I'm getting at. And I guess, is that matter? Like, are at your end and your staff, when you see it coming through and it's really good, but also has that emotion, like that real piece to it? matters, I guess, is kind of where I wanted to start off with.
Yeah, I think there's always a place for that. Absolutely, especially if you're explaining the why. So why do you need this grant funding? I think that emotion piece can have an impact in that area. Um, I think you still want to have that technical piece to explain that why, but I think there is a place. I mean, we allow for a narrative, and it doesn't have to be robotic. It can touch on that emotional piece, and
Mm,
these applications, these projects are reviewed by a panel of human beings,
mm.
and that will remain. And so, um, you know, we're all emotional beings, so I think there's still room for that piece.
It's really interesting your point on, the bar being raised. Like it's clear, like we had an AI professional coming in. He's the same person giving that free webinar coming up in March. But you could really quickly see, like if you were to tell the English minors and other arts degrees out there, hey, you have to have a work breakdown structure. You have to have a schedule to your project. We're always comfortable in a Word document, but now these components of, here are these technical pieces that AI can build instantly. This idea of raising the bar, I totally agree with you. And it'll be interesting to see if, you think of like that, it divides groups into those who are leveraging AI already on top of their skills with those that aren't. It's like you can almost see that, whoa, there's going to be a gap here if people don't get on board. It feels that way anyway.
It's amazing. I mean, really, it's AI is the cold single action army of grant writing now. It is the great equalizer,
Yeah.
between municipalities. In the past, you have maybe some capacity challenge with smaller municipalities competing for grant funding from larger municipalities. And we as grant funders would have to figure out how to balance that naturally through equitable funding.
Hmm.
But having that ability now to use AI, it really equalizes that quality of those applications right across municipalities now. And that's what I'm seeing as a trend. It's huge.
Jeff, do you want to field a couple questions?
Yeah, so if you have questions, please throw them in the Q&A box. I'll kick it off with the first one, which is how reliant is municipal affairs on AI for summarizing and searching grant applications? And is reliance on AI increasing?
So how reliant are we on like reviewing? Sorry. Just wanna let me
Yeah, how reliant is municipal affairs on using AI for summarizing and searching grant applicants?
uh, we are not using AI for summarizing grant applications that come in. They are all reviewed by humans. We're not using AI to do any kind of summarizing or anything like that.
It's a pretty good question, though. It's like they come in, all right, which one of these won? It's an interesting question. It's a good question, whoever asked that.
And is there any AI systems you suggest over others?
Um, so I think we are using Microsoft 360, and I think that's enterprise for us. And so, it's really that confidentiality piece that you really have to be careful about.
Mm,
If your organization doesn't have a resource that's confidential or an AI tool that's confidential, um, I've personally found outside of this environment that ChatGPT works really really well. I've used all of them, but I find that that's pretty standard for mine. And I know Microsoft 360 uses Chat as well.
Yeah, we're the same way internally, whereas if we've got external things or non-confidential things, go ahead and use ChatGPT or whatever. But for sensitive documents or anything proprietary, we use Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, just kind of have those walls there so things don't get into the public sphere that shouldn't be in the public sphere. There is a question in the chat, which is just asking if you can share your slide presentation, which I think shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. I'll share that.
We'll put it on that page, Jeff, that page on the website, folks, that you'll see it in the chat where my notes are, my slides are. We'll add it there for you, so you can just go back there and download it.
Perfect. I'm not seeing anything else come into the
I've
Q&A
got one
box
more if
here,
that's okay,
but
Jeff.
we've got time.
Yeah, regarding the process. I think a lot of people submit a grant, into the department. It goes into this black box or this, this big, and then you come out and you find out. Could you just walk us through what happens, when that application comes in? I think it would be kind of valuable to people right up. Maybe does it go to the minister, for example?
Yeah, for sure. I can do that. It may be different in different areas, right? The process can vary across government, but in our particular case, for our competitive programs, when an application arrives, it's reviewed by grant advisors. Um, we After a assessment is made by the grant advisors, the panel comes together to discuss those assessments. Recommendations are then made to the minister. Those recommendations are then reviewed up a chain of leadership. So that would go from manager to director to executive director to assistant deputy minister to minister. And so there are a lot of hands that those recommendations move through that system. Now, there may be some follow-up questions, and I'll just try to be proactive in answering some of those. Are there changes through that sort of piece? There typically aren't that come out of the panel. I mean, in the case of our particular program, we tell you right in the guidelines how these projects are assessed, and the how projects are scored is down to a little bit of a science. And so typically those recommendations don't deviate. But of course, at the end of the day, we work in a system. Approvals are not provided by program, they're provided, of course, by the minister. And so that's typically, in a nutshell, how that process approval works in a really high level general way.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's really interesting. People internally got to get their project clear, and it's just good to know. Look, this is going to go see a lot of different people, so your project's got to be clear, concise, make a lot of sense. So I think that's very helpful. Jeff, I know we're winding out of time, but I wanted to throw this video in, if I can just say this. This was I blew it. I couldn't get this screen to share, but I put the video in there. I would encourage people. That is an Alberta organization that won an international grant, and it's 2-minute video overview of what they did, and it just really shows kind of the emotion in grants and in the stories and the people involved. And my intention was to get you fired up about, especially you veterans on here. I have a soft spot for you because I'm like, look, you have a passion. You can make a big difference in this. But I blew it. But anyway, there it is. Please watch that after. I think you'll think it's cool, and kind of watch it with a critical lens of how they do it. That's all I have, Jeff, for today. And remind people that we have a survey. Please give us your feedback. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder, David, and thanks for everyone for joining us today. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A box, so I guess we'll give everyone a couple of minutes back on their Tuesday. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one. Thanks so much for
Yeah.
joining, Ryan.
Thank you very much. See you later, Mr. Barber. Thank you.